Weird, it's so much is known about this, but so seldom do you find this in the health arena. This is fenugreek extract. And fenugreek, the pharmaceutical companies use this to make steroidal drugs. Now, if you read through the lines, if you take fenugreek, it's anti-inflammatory at a very high level. It also helps people with gastrointestinal problems, diverticulosis, diverticulitis, Crohn's disease, colitis, etc. And it is remarkable in changing body odor from foul to fragrant. Big one, that one. Cayenne, cayenne is not only cardiovascular, it helps your bloodstream balance and move in the way and the fashion that it should, but it also gives you an ability to heal much quicker. Believe it or not, we use cayenne pepper for ulcers that are bleeding. We actually use it externally if you get a wound. This will prevent the blood from gushing on you. Hawthorn is a traditional herb that's been used forever, but this particular company makes, as far as I'm concerned, the top in the world. This is biobotanical that pioneered putting it in glycerin about 40 years ago. And when you look at Hawthorn, this keeps the capillaries and the veins in the body, that's where all the blood goes through, open and elastic. So we want that. Everyone knows about ashwagandha at this point. That's an old Ayurvedic that actually works as well, only does work better than most antidepressants. And this keeps you upbeat and happy, etc. I take a little bit of that too. I get too upbeat sometimes. Papaya leaf extract, there's a lot of problems with the platelets now. And when you look at that, this is something that's been traditionally used, and man, it works better than anything I've ever seen, where platelet counts to adjust them, bring them up, bring them down, etc. Cemento, this is a great story. A Harvard doctor was really, really sick. He went down to die in his home country in South America. He was laying there, he weighed, I think, 88 pounds, he told me. And his nanny came in, who helped him grow up as a boy, and hugged him and, cried and said, "You've got to come with me to the village out in the jungle. And my, medicine man there is going to help." And he got up and he's got very angry. He had no energy to do it. He screamed at her. He said, "Harvard can't heal me of cancer, and your witch doctor can." And then he cried and fell in her arms and got on a bus and went 5.5 hours up there and actually found out they were using this, cemento. And he brought it to the world. As a matter of fact, he dedicated the rest of his life after reversing his disease to getting this into the hands of people. And people like me who can afford it, then he takes it and gives it to people who can't afford it. So great, great things that we've learned over the years. And the essential oils are just amazing. This is something I take every single day. So I put little tiny drops, because this is nano, very, very minute forms of it, in my nose. So it's antimicrobial. It's just great stuff. When we look at strontium, I was just talking about this yesterday. Strontium is underrated. Nobody talks about it. This is a mineral they call trace mineral, meaning your body needs less. But if you don't have enough strontium, and a lot of you don't have it, your calcium and magnesium do not bond, so your bones are weaker. You don't want weak bones, do you? Now, this is another thing I have to talk about. People say to me, "Brian, weren't you brave to go from a standard Western diet to a plant-based diet?" No, I wasn't brave. I was surrounded by brave women. I was a weak man. And I wanted to go and eat everything you shouldn't eat. As long as it wasn't meat, I was going to eat it. And women introduced me to dehydrated foods. This is the only bridge I've seen work with thousands, tens of thousands of people over the half century that I've done this work. Because when you can put food into a dehydrator, it looks like, feels like, and tastes like the cooked food you're familiar with. And we don't really want the cooked food, but we want the taste of it, the feeling of it, the tradition of it. So these are the things that are going to help you stick to this type of lifestyle. Look at these nuts. I used to eat so many roasted nuts, I had hemorrhoids at one point. These taste much better than any of those roasted nuts I ever ate. I can assure you, this is one of my favorite, the garlic pistachios. And when you start to look at all the books that we've written over the decades, There's a reason for it, because these are subjects that nobody really talks about. As an example, killer fish. People are still saying to me today, pescatarians, oh, I'm eating fish, because Dr. So-and-so said it's good. Anyone that tells you fish is good is so out of the loop, they're on a different planet from 100 years ago. If I wanted to make you sick, I'd give you aquatic life. Read this book, Dairy Deception. In there, this is all data-based, but not for scientists. These are for the average person. I'm an average person. I want to know this stuff. I want to be able to get it in just 2 or 3 minutes. And these are the things that we keep doing. Self-healing diet. This, out of all the years after I lost 120 pounds by getting on this diet, I finally wrote a book to help all of you in the world lose weight in a healthy way. And this is also science-based, every single page. But the truth is, you're not going to hear the science in most people, even health experts, because they're not at that place where they're looking at the cutting edge. They haven't had the 70 years of clinical research on hundreds of thousands of people. Poison poultry. People are still saying to me, poultry. When I was young, poultry were only consumed by people who were poor. Then red meat got the rap, thank God. And all at once people said, well, if we're not eating red meat, we have to eat poultry. How many of you know that poultry, that means chicken, turkey, is much worse for you than red meat? How many of you know Dr. Virginia Livingston, now she's gone, but a colleague of mine, for 65 years did research and showed you chicken out of all meat caused more cancer than any other form of animal food. So wake up to these things and learn these things. We look at wonderful things, like this book was written by one of our co-founders, Viktoras Kulvinskas, Survival in the 21st Century. Back in the 70s, this was the most popular health book, and it's still applicable today. Look what it says, Survival in the 21st Century. How are we doing, people? He was talking about this 55, 60 years ago. And so we know these things. This is the threshold of excellence. Seeds, which are little tiny, extraordinary living things. All you have to do is give them some water, give them some oxygen, and they're going to give you more nutrition and more medicine than anything else on the planet Earth. Now, this is not my idea. This is the idea of mainstream, logical, sensible, cutting-edge science. So if you ask me what has the most nutrition in it, sprouts. What has the most medicine in it, called phytonutrients, sprouts. And these are so easy to grow. We have everything from these little ones, if you don't have a lot of space, to automatic sprouting devices I helped to design with my French colleague, and many of our guests make this easy. They have it on their countertop, and boom, they have gardens there. Over here, these are some of my now friends that came to Hippocrates. Dennis Weaver, back in the 1960s, was a vegan. I didn't know what a vegan was in the 1960s. I didn't know what a vegan was until 1969. And by the way, when I became a vegan, I didn't know what I was doing. But I became a vegan. And Dennis Weaver was on a show called Gunsmoke, American Tradition. Kenny Loggins. Kenny Loggins' wife for many, many years was on the Hippocrates Board of Directors. Kenny was on the road. He was getting these foods and eating organic food when he traveled over 200 days a year, playing all over the world. So don't say this is hard to do, people. This is really easy. One of my closest friends and mentors was Coretta Scott King. Coretta was my mission mentor. And our children, my 4 children, were her surrogate grandchildren, because before her demise, she didn't have any grandchildren of her own. And she was one of the great people in my life, because she taught me about commitment. She taught me about consciousness. She taught me about not ever wavering or giving up. Always sticking to not only your dream, but creating dreams that are stickable. That's the most important part of it. My favorite of all, I shouldn't say my favorite of all actors, but I have to say it, this guy is hands down kick-ass as an actor, is Anthony Hopkins. One of the most beautiful men that I ever met in my life. This guy was just so down to earth and real. Why? Because he had an alcohol problem for a long time. And decades before he came here, he gave it up. So people who were so low understand how good it is to be so alive and so awake and so high compared to where you're low like that. So God bless him. God bless her soul. She came here, and this is Olivia Newton-John. and she left us a couple of years ago now. And Olivia's last album, if you never got a chance to, it's a very spiritually derived album that talks about healing. As a matter of fact, when I'm out on the road, I use some of her music when I'm in my conferences all over the planet Earth. And so on it goes. You know, here, Elle McPherson, boy, she's been living this way for a long time. She reversed cancer. And Elle has been here for weeks on end. And if you want to look at Hippocrates TV, we have a lot of things. Anna Marie and she did programs together. And you can actually look at them for free on Hippocrates TV. So not only people, average people like me come here, and people who, by the way, the church collected money come here, superstars come here too. And Hollywood sends the actors and actresses here. And I found out from one of the actors that every single actor is suggested to come to Hippocrates because we can buff the body up quicker than any other diet on the planet. And why do we know that? Because the top trainer in Santa Monica told me that. He said, it usually takes us 2-3 months to get people in good enough shape to do a nice role in a movie. He said, we send them to you in 6 weeks, we have them buffed up and ready to go. Do you know what that saves in a budget of a movie? Well, I can tell you, it must be millions of dollars the way they pay those folks. And so we have so many things that you may have never heard about before. This is a wonderful story. This is the aloe here called Stockton aloe. And Mr. Stockton was animated. How many of you have ever seen 1940 movies? Matter of fact, the guys then dressed like I am today, 1940 movies. And they were very, hello, I'm John, how are you? And the woman would say, oh, I'm Mary, honey. Well, Mr. Stockton was a chemist, a scientist, and he was from Chicago. And he was down in Daytona Beach before I was born. And he was watching the lifeguards put aloe on their face from the sunburns. And he said, what's that? And that's how he spoke, by the way. He didn't know what an aloe was. And then he investigated it. He said, well, I looked at it, and then I wanted to see where the best aloe in the world was from. And he went all over the world. He spent several years, and he ended up back in Florida because they found out the coral rock in deep Florida, down very far south, below Miami, was so rich in particular type of vital elements that if they grow the aloe there, it has something special. So this is raw living aloe. You can't get this. In the bottles in health store, they're cooked to death. There's nothing in those. You're getting cooked, nothing water from that. This is completely vibrant with the most nutritious organic aloe on the planet. And what this does is amazing. Every single day, would I put a lot of these powders in? About 20 of my supplements, or powders or liquid, I put in aloe and coconut water, raw aloe and coconut water. And then I mix that up and drink that. And the other 19 we take as little pills, supplementation. So it's so much fun when you learn this stuff. Blue-green algae, how many of you know what this is? This is the original life on the planet. What do you mean? In this bottle? Yeah, really. For $19.99. What we mean is this is a cyanobacteria that evolved to blue-green algae that created oxygen on this earth. So you wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here. Nothing you look out your window and see, or if you're driving listening to me, pull over because I'm going to get you all riled up. Hasn't come from this. This is the mother lode. This is where everything came from. So now can you imagine the amount of nutrition in it? Everything that has ever come after that is in this single cell life form. And let me repeat it again so you get what I say. Since this is the foundation of life, everything that has come after that, including you, is in this. So this is certainly one of the 5 algae that I take every single day along with Anna Maria. Why? This has monstrously powerful nutrients in it, some of which we haven't identified. Out of all foods on the planet, the highest density of protein, minerals out the gazoo, amazing, amazing stuff. And here's where we have some debate here. Anna Marie and I have this ongoing debate because I don't like candy. I don't eat desserts. And why I don't eat desserts, quite simply, is I wouldn't stop. I know me. Everything I do, I put my foot to the gas, I drive fast, I go fast, and I would eat a lot of desserts. But what we did is we had one of our alumnus was making raw chocolate desserts, make this with little to no sugar. Now, should it be on this campus? No. But should it be on this campus? Yes. And the reason being is that a lot of you are more addicted to sugar than anything else. Let me rephrase that. There's not any of you listening that's not a sugar addict. You may be a recovering sugar addict like me, but most of you are active sugar addicts. And so you're being told by so-called health experts that honey is better than white sugar. No. Agave syrup is better than white sugar. No. Maple syrup is better than white sugar. No. That there's nutrition in it. Well, I could take drugs with nutrition or just drugs. Why do I want nutrition from drugs? One of the many books I wrote is Sweet Disease. And if you read no other book I've ever written, read that book, because the plague on the planet Earth is all of you are addicted to sugar, and there's nobody on the earth who's a real legitimate scientist who doesn't know premature aging, cancer, viruses, bacteria, mold, yeast, fungus, all are fed by sugar. So till the next time you be well, be sweet, but don't eat sweet.